Good afternoon and welcome to our second in our series of Kodak DSS Dynamics AX webinars. The topic for today is reporting in BI with Dynamics AX 2012. It's approximately 30 minutes in duration, followed by a Q&A. A little bit about Kodak DSS. We're an Irish company. Since 1985, 127 employees in not just Ireland but also in the UK, Germany and Poland. And we are currently the Microsoft Dynamics Partner of the Year and also Microsoft Gold Partner Certified. This is a joint webinar between myself, the AX lead, and the BI lead, Michelle Clark, myself, Brian O'Hanlon. So you can see here what we do. So as I say, we're covering ERP applications, sales and marketing automation, and CRM. And as I say, the joint session with Michelle covering business intelligence applications and tools. Here's a list of some of the companies we currently do business with in Ireland and the UK. Moving on. So the topics for today, I will be taking most of the webinar today, so I'll be covering off the Dynamics AX reporting within the product. Michelle will be taking on the BI reporting and giving a little bit more of a detailed explanation of the BI tools available with Dynamics AX. Then back to me to go through SharePoint reporting, Excel reporting and add-ins, project reporting again within Dynamics AX 2012, and finally financial reporting in AX 2012. So I'm going to go into the product itself now. So we begin in the normal dashboard you would see when you first go into the home page within any company within Dynamics AX. This dashboard hasn't changed much since AX 2009, but the actual reporting surrounding this dashboard and reports within AX certainly has. If we take, for example, one of the reports, the first chart here, and I just hover on the sales in the past periods a second, we can see that that's produced using SQL reporting services. So the reports in terms of dashboards have always been created in the previous version as well using reporting services, but this is now embedded and all reports are carried out and produced in this way. If we look within some of the modules themselves, if we take General Ledger for example, and we go in and we look at the reports and we look at running, say, a standard trial balance. This trial balance is divided up between different financial dimensions, and we'll look at it at the main GL account code level, say for this month. We're going to look at it at the summary level. If we just run that report, as I say, this is a report and services report, and the report's produced, and it's a standard list of balances to do with GL account codes, both P&L and balance sheet. So one of the key differences in the report and services reports over X++ reporting previously in AX is the fact it's two button clicks and that report is in an Excel format. So just select export and select the format. And it's as simple as that. Report saved. If I go now into the folder I've just saved the report and open it up, that report's now opened up into Excel. Previously, what you would have to have done was produce a text file or a CSV file, and then you would have need a bit of knowledge within Excel to actually open the file and edit it to get into an Excel format. But that's no longer the case. Back into the reports themselves, if we just look back into the General Ledger module, and we can see a whole host of reports within the General Ledger module. Now previously in AX 2009, for example, reports would have had an asterisk next to them. That would have signified a report and services report, and there was maybe 20 in total. Now, as I say, every single report is produced via the the BI tool reporting services, and there's over 850 available out of the box with Dynamics AX. Just a little bit finally here before I pass you over to Michelle, it's just to mention about tables. If anyone's looking to actually upgrade from AX4 or AX 2009 to 2012, the table structures have changed. Ledger Trans, for example, was one of maybe 3 or 4 main transaction tables, which would take up about 90%, 90 to 95% of the database. That, for example, has been replaced by 3 different tables in AX 2012. So those related tables are different from previous versions. Okay, I'll pass you over to Michelle now to give us a little bit more detail about the BI tools and capabilities surrounding Dynamics AX 2012. So, Michelle.
Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, so you may be all wondering why I'm here speaking about business intelligence when we're on a Microsoft AX webinar. Well, business intelligence is about taking the data you already have in your organization and delivering it to your end users in such a way that it's going to help you make intelligent decisions on behalf of your organization. And of course, this includes the data which is stored within Microsoft AX. So you may not be aware, but Microsoft AX comes pre-packaged with some of the Microsoft Business Intelligence tools, including SQL Server Reporting Services and SQL Server Analysis Services. So the dashboards on the Microsoft AX homepage are developed using such tools. And what this allows you to do is take the data within AX and using the powerful capabilities provided within the BI suite, model your AX data and provide views of this data to your end users, which enables them to make better decisions for your organization on a daily basis. So as you can see, we've got some cubes that are built in the back end, and this is where our data is stored. And also in here we can build some new cubes, so predefined cubes that we can model ourselves, which we can then use to report our different AX data. So the level of complexity that you undertake when you're enhancing the BI capabilities within AX can range from simple enhancements onto what already exists, or you can do additional customizations to suit your specific requirements, and this is really where the new cubes would come into play. So Microsoft AX already comes with a number of great pre-packaged reports which were designed to meet the requirements of organizations running AX. However, one of these reports, while it may be exactly what you're looking for, it may point to the wrong scenario. So take, for example, this KPI report we have, and when we look at the out-of-the-box version, the goal column was looking at the previous year's actuals, when in fact we wanted the goal to point to this year's budget. So using the BI tools provided, we were quickly able to update this report to give us the information that we as an organization required. In addition to this, it's often the case that when users are given access to a BI solution and begin to understand the capabilities of the tools that they have and how it can help them in their daily roles, they look for more. So they want more detailed information, and they want it at a more detailed level. So really by using the BI stack, which you now have, you can provide more customized reporting against AX, and it helps you then to identify your crucial trends and some key KPIs specific to your organization. So really just simply by implementing AX, you're implementing the underlying BI tools which enable you to do this. And as an organization, you should really be taking advantage of these capabilities and work with both Microsoft AX and Microsoft BI together, not only deliver an ERP solution, but to deliver an ERP solution with BI capabilities on top. So I'll just hand you back over to Brian now, and he'll run through the rest of the demo.
Thanks, Michelle. Okay, so Michelle's given quite a comprehensive guide there in the reasons why the BI tools and Microsoft are utilising the full Microsoft technology stack in terms of Dynamics AX 2012 over previous versions. I'm now going to take you through the rest of the actual topics. Firstly, I mentioned about all reporting within the modules is undertaken within reporting services. But there actually is another avenue, the various other avenues in terms of reporting, one of which would be using Microsoft SharePoint Enterprise. If I take you to another one of the roles now. So if we just look at this particular role through a web page itself. So we'll look at the Chief Executive Officer within the organisation. I have mentioned previously there's 40 or 50 pre-built dashboards based on the role responsibilities of a position within an organisation. Okay, just taking a moment here to just pull the information through. Again, there's a whole host of other KPIs here. We spoke about them in terms of the goals change, and we changed for the financial, the Chief Financial Officer's role, which Michelle was just talking about there. So we see here there's a report, and previously we've seen a sales report which is on a monthly basis. This is a sales report on a quarter basis. But interestingly, this report is produced not as before using reporting services. This particular report is produced, as I say, using a feature of Enterprise SharePoint, and it's called a Performance Point Report. So this particular report gives you a little bit of extra functionality directly out of the box. And what we're able to do, if we just highlight there on that particular column of information, we can see the sales total. But if we right-click on that particular column, we actually have enhanced reporting capabilities to drill down to the detail surrounding that 1.72 million. So all of these are object dimensions on this side that we can choose. So if we drill down, for example, by a customer, an update, and quickly within two button presses, we've actually said, right, in that particular quarter, what's the breakdown of our 1.72 million between some of our customers. And if you remember from our financial officer's dashboard, there was only 3 customers we have at the moment, but if there was a lot more, you would see them all there. So you might want to also drill down by sales rep, by region, by country. It's your choice, and there's a whole host of different dimensions that you can choose to drill down. Okay, so another option. If we go and have a look now at Excel and have a look at the add-ons within Microsoft products themselves. So what report options are there within that? So if we just open up an example here, we have several different add-ins here. One of the add-ins here is called Power Pivot. And what Power Pivot will allow us to do, there's a separate BI webinar called Self-Service, which again we'll send you a link separately. But that gives you a lot more detail about using Power Pivot, and as we were looking before on the likes of the BI cubes, General Ledger, for example, amongst others, to do with analysis services that are built. And what Power Pivot does, it allows you to pull that information in through the Power Pivot window into Excel and create your queries yourself. So it's a nice front end, a nice user-friendly Excel way of creating queries from a BI database, offline database. So we just have an example here with some sample data, just to see the power and the differences of Power Pivots over pivot tables you would normally see in standard old versions of Office Excel 2007, say. So this is a link into Office Excel 2010, and if I just click here within the actual data, we can see on the right hand side, to start with, we can see extra functionality, a couple of extra things here. We're able to open multiple tables. So if we were bringing, for example, if we were linking to a GL cube from AX, there would be several different tables. One may be the actual transactions. One could be the actual chart of account information. So you could link several tables automatically And the additional functionality, besides linking several tables, is we're able to slice and dice by horizontal and also by vertical. So in this particular example, we have information where you would normally pull in information, say, to do with credit rating, and it would just be by total. Now we can actually take an extra level, like a 3D look at the actual pivot information, and we can slice and dice that even further, say by agent buckets or different customer groups, for example. Okay, so that's the power of an add-in. Again, this add-in Power Pivot comes free with the pre-delivered pack with Dynamics AX. If we look at one of the other add-ins, Dynamics AX itself, can be used for reporting purposes, but I'll just give you a quick example why I wouldn't use it for reporting purposes. So within Dynamics AX, there's a pre-built links directly into Excel to do with transaction services. And I've added some extra transaction services here from Dynamics AX, and they've automatically populated through the link into Excel. What I would normally use, I would use budget register entries, and we will actually be covering that in a further webinar to do with financial planning. We will be taking examples of budget templates in and out of AX and using more familiar surroundings of Excel to complete them before loading them back in. Again, it's 1 or 2 button presses. We have general ledger journals, maybe pulling in. Again, it's to do with importing and exporting data. There's a whole host of other transaction services. I've just left them there for examples, and that is pulling information out for reporting purposes, the likes of customer agent. But again, as I showed earlier, it's just 2 presses to produce maybe an agent report from AX. So just to show you back in AX itself, I have a favorite setup to go directly to the customer agent report. And remember, it was a case of running the report for a particular period or whichever way you would like. And it was a single button press from the report which is produced to drop it into Excel. So I certainly wouldn't use the Dynamics AX add-in for anything but data transfer. Okay, now let's head back into AX itself. We're going to look at the last 2 topics I have to do with project reporting. So back into AX itself. And we're going to look at project reporting, and then we're going to look at financial statements. So first, project reporting. So projects as its own module has grown significantly in AX 2009, and it's grown again in AX 2012, particularly around reporting. So if I click into the module, there's a whole raft of reports here to do with financials, to do with profit and loss, to do with WIP, and basically there's templates built so we can just have a straight project P&L, or we can have a P&L compared with this period, compared with last period, for example. We can look at categories. So there's a whole host of P&L template reporting, very similar in fact to SAP, and the look and feel from experience. So if we actually look at one of these particular reports, so if I go into a project P&L, and let's see what it looks like. So in terms of the options, so we just look here, I've got some data in for last month, time and material data, so we'll just pull that information together, but we could pick any of these transaction types or project types. And the interesting thing here is the level of project that we can actually drill down information-wise into. If we just leave that first at project level 1, and just press OK on that. And what we can see is we can see totals here for this particular project at the top level. So the asterisk here dictates that there actually is more than just the top level associated with each of these totals. Okay, So we won't drop that into Excel because we've done that on a couple of occasions. So there's nothing to be gained by that. But if we run that report again, but this time rather than at level 1, we're gonna run this report at project level 2. Okay, so you can see here the asterisk before. Yes, there was sub-levels. So we had sub-project underneath the main project. So what I've set up here is a typical system implementation, and you would have a design phase, tester phase, go live phase. So you might want to record internal time and expense or external time expense of consultants working on this particular project in each of those phases against a planned budget. Okay, so again, new templates and the ability to drill down from the project down to the full hierarchical in terms of all the projects within. So you could have several levels of projects. You could break them down even further than that if you so desired. And you can also add budgets, as I say, against each of the project levels as well as you go. Okay. Previously, just to give reference back to AX 2009, previously there was none of those reports. What you would have had to done was similar to what we're going to do now, is financial statements. You would have had to have dedicated one of the 10 finite financial dimensions to projects, and then you would have had to have built a financial statement. This is a template out of the box, and just put a little bit of information in and what level you want to run it, and click, and you receive the results in terms of your P&L or your WIP analysis of a particular project. So finally, within AX 2012, we're going to look at the general ledger, and we're going to look at financial statements. So financial statements, the actual building blocks of the financial statements hasn't changed within AX 2012. We still have to create a row definition. Row definition, an example of a row definition may be a series of GL account numbers, and then you would build the columns or the financial statement, and that would build your columns across to those rows, maybe financials, your actuals versus your budget, for example. And this is the example we've built today. So if we go into the financial statement, again, this report is now built in report and services, so it's a single click. Actually, isn't a single click into Excel. You'll see that in a minute. So if we just look at the traditional way first. So here we're looking at actuals versus budget for this particular period, and this is looking. See here we've got levels again, drill down levels, but in this particular instance, we're only looking at the row definition to do with the GL main account codes. So this is the traditional way we would run this report. We could only run it by two sets of information. So you could say you could run it by cost centers, and then you could further divide that down by your main account. So you could have then a P&L for each one of your cost centers, for example. But there was only ever 2 dimensions available. So the traditional route here, so I'll click OK on that. Let's try that again. Okay, so this time when the reporting services is run, it automatically populates into Excel and opens the file at the same time. So there's a little bit of extra coding in the financial statements to do with reporting services to actually not just to create the Excel format, but to actually open at the same time. So we're looking at the very top level. We're looking at actuals of this current month against the budget in the current month. Again, the budget figure we were referring to earlier, Michelle, when we updated the KPIs in relation to the BIGL cube. see the variance there. So that's the traditional way, but the traditional way certainly wouldn't have opened single click into Excel. It would have loaded as a text file, which would have had to have been imported into Excel. So that's certainly hugely better to have it work in that way. But the alternative is what the additional functionality is to do with financial statements as of now. So bear with me a second. And let's run that same report again. But this time we have the ability not just to be limited to 2 sets, where it's an infinite number of sets. And in this particular example, we're going to go down to 3 levels. So M for main, L for legal entity, and D for department. So we have the ability here to click down to those levels. So we're going to look at that information, drilling down to the department level. Apologies, I need to close the original report first before I can run this one. Try this again. Let's go and have a look at the report. And as you can see, we have actuals versus budget again for this month, but this time it's broken down from the main account into the legal entity, into the department, and you can see the actual name of the department, sales and operations, in relation to this one. So in this particular case, there's no budget because we set the budget at the top level. So we have to align the drill down in terms of how we record our actuals to our budget. We'll go into accounting structures in far more detail when we have our next webinar on financial planning. That particular webinar will also be hosted by myself and Michelle Clark, and we'll talk about the options in AX and also beyond AX. Just back now, that completes our webinar. I'm just going to go back to our PowerPoint presentation. So we just mentioned about the email links to do with management reports, etc. on our website. ERP Dynamics Ireland group. Please feel free to ask me any questions. My name was Brian O'Hanlon, Kodak DSS. So any queries you would have, please contact us on that particular email address, or via the LinkedIn page, or via the website, or Rory Kremen. We can follow up with any meetings and specific demos to meet your requirements. Thank you for listening.